Okay, this is a new workshop for our web store. We don't actually know what this is going to be about, which is always fun to go into a session not knowing what we're going to be taught. So I will start with Ananda and we'll see what comes through. For those of you that don't know me, I take a breath and Ananda comes through, and it's very clear when they're speaking and not me. We're with you again, dear ones. Welcome to all of you that are viewing this particular transmission. It is a very important time in your society's evolution. And so we would like to begin to tell you a story about your society that you heretofore have not really heard about. Your planetary systems are beautiful. They are powerful and they are orchestrated by an energy that is beyond your ability to comprehend. You are indeed like a small mouse trying to understand a great city. And to you, it is almost invisible. But to the city dwellers, to the builders of the city, it is not impossible and it is not invisible. And so through your history, you have been kept small. You have been taught to take gratitude in a tiny little bite of something that is much larger. You have been constrained by these teachings. Now, we have brought many messages through this being. We have been on a systematic evolutionary journey with you, bringing your energies up step by step from those first communications, from that first book. Now, we would like to speak about the books as they come through, because there is no mistake in the order in which those books have come through this being. They have come through in that order because that is the order that is best for you to study in. The first book, a book about sexual energy, was a foundational text because of your daily interaction with that energy. It is the most powerful energy that you deal with on a daily basis, and it is one of the most manipulated energies that you deal with on a daily basis. So in your society, you have the idea that the way you deal with sexual energy is somewhat natural. This is how it is meant to be. Well, we want to tell you that that is not so. Your society has been founded upon principles of shame and secrecy around sexual energy that have kept you very, very disempowered and very, very confused. And building block upon building block, that shame and guilt and fear has been used against you to get you to choose shame and guilt and fear. This is how your society has been teaching you. It takes very, very energetic, happy little beings that come into this time-space reality, and very early on teaches you to be ashamed of certain aspects of yourself. The sexual energy that you are blessed with, and some of you don't think it's a blessing, you think it's a curse because of these distortions. But the sexual energy that you are blessed with is a divine aspect of God mind, and it is intensely creative, and it is the vital life force that keeps you living a long time. This is one of the reasons that you die when you do. Many of you leave this planet in your 70s or 80s or 90s, when in fact you can live many, many times longer than that if you have access to all of the energies that are your natural birthright. And so we brought that first book through to introduce to you some of the ideas that you need to entertain as you go on this consciousness evolution journey. It was brought through first so that you could read it first. So for those of you that are new to this teaching, we would recommend that you read that book first, because these frequency upgrades are destined to take you on a specific journey up through your own consciousness to a higher plane. We cannot do it all in one go, because your consciousness through these teachings of your society, have fundamental building blocks that are incorrect, fundamental ideas about yourself that are incorrect and that are fearful or judgmental or shame-inducing. And so if we dismantled your consciousness and told you only the truth in one great bite, you would be overwhelmed. You would be completely unable to correlate it with the information that you use every day to make your decisions. You would become paralyzed by an overload of information. So we are bringing through bite-sized pieces for you in a particular order so that you may understand yourselves. The second book that we brought through was about life after death and the death process. This too is one of the great illusory ideas of your society. You do not have to die the way you die. You die the way you do because you are fed death-filled images throughout your life. You are filled with stories about sickness. You are filled with shame and guilt about your sexual energy, and all of these things impinge upon your energy systems. We are about opening up your energy systems through clarification of mind. And that is what each of these books do. So the second book, using unashamedly your obsession with celebrity, we use that book to get your attention. You may be curious about what Diana may say about her death experience. You may not be interested in any of the others, but that might get you to buy the book. And then that information, all of those beautiful stories, all of those beautiful life lessons will be sitting on your coffee table as a potential influx of education for you. Death is one of those great illusory ideas in your society. And the more you focus on murder shows, the more you focus on movies in which hundreds of people are killed by the good guy, the more you focus on sickness, the more death is worshipped in your society. You don't think of yourself as a death-worshipping society, but you are. You say you watch those shows because the drama's so good. You say you watch those shows because the characters are so intriguing. And that is done on purpose to get you to focus on death with intriguing, enticing, emotional connections to the characters. They even make shows about murderers who you find appealing because they are manipulating your consciousness to focus on death. If you realized what was happening in your consciousness as you watch these many shows, you would not watch them. And this is why we harp on about it a lot, because you do not understand what these kinds of shows do to your frequency. Remember, each of the books we bring through is a step up a ladder to a higher frequency. We are returning you to the place that you should have been if you had been left to yourselves without manipulation. So throughout the history of your recent civilization, we will say 2,000 to 3,000 years, you have systematically been taught things that are keeping you down, keeping you small, keeping you fearful. Now, some of you will say, well, life expectancy is going up. We are surely doing better than we were 1,000 years ago. But you don't really know that. Your histories are distorted. The stories you hear about civilizations before this one are untrue because of these ruling classes that have educated you into exactly the frequency that they want you to have. Have you not noticed that there are systems of governance in your society that have been there for centuries? The royal families of your world, the empire building energies of the old world, taking their boats and their soldiers and their religions around the world, destroying indigenous cultures systematically and aggressively, introducing these low frequency ideas of guilt and shame, suffering, martyrdom and death to people who were in complete accord with nature, to people who were living their own beautiful, creative, evolutionary journeys. This systematic spreading the word of death, suffering, martyrdom was intentional, because these other cultures were higher frequency cultures, and that is why they were so decimated, because there was a message of death that was being passed around the globe. And that is what you are witnessing here. You are witnessing an engineered society. You are witnessing a culture that is literally constructed of propaganda. If you had been left to your own devices as a global population, you would see thriving, completely disparate kinds of civilizations, which is what you saw several thousand years ago. You saw the Egyptians, you saw the Incans, you saw the indigenous peoples of North America, you saw the various Asian societies and their differing experiences. And that is what Spirit wants. It wants different opportunities to experience different things. What you are witnessing now in the West is a globalized culture, where even if you go to a remote village in Africa, you will see a bottle of Coke or a Nike shoe. This is contamination as far as we are concerned. And so book 2 was introducing you to the idea of life after death, because trust us, you existed before this one incarnation, and you will exist after this one incarnation. Your consciousness is a never-ending, eternal thing. It is not dependent on a body. The body is dependent on the consciousness. The consciousness creates the body. And so that second book takes you on that journey through exploring death and your fears of death, because many of you do not live full lives because of somebody who died. That parent or that child or that loved one that died, your beliefs about death contaminate your entire existence. And that is a waste of energy. You are all here to live fully as long as you are destined to. You all have a blueprint which tells you when you might leave. There are several exit points for many of you. Some of you have one exit point that is predestined. Depending on the choices you make, you may leave at other points. Because if you do your work, you don't need to stay here. This place is a place of separation. It is a place of learning, unlearning. You are unlearning the blocks that stop you realizing who and what you are. These are blocks to love. And so this is why we are teaching you about love, as well as these other great principles. And of course, the third book was about Jesus, this magnificent teacher that continues to teach through this being. And that book was designed to heal your beliefs about him, to heal your beliefs about what his work meant, to heal your beliefs about the church that used his teachings to implement cruel and unusual punishments upon sinners, to teach you that you are indeed sinners. That book is part of the evolutionary journey of your consciousness, and it is a very, very important one, because shame and guilt and martyrdom, suffering and sacrifice are the fundamental building blocks of what was the church's teachings, and those are the fundamental building blocks on which your society is built. And so you cannot change your society. And that is what this teaching is about. It is about expanding your consciousness into the realms of love so that you can stop suffering here on the planet, so that you can stop killing each other, so that you can stop wasting your resources on guns and tanks and bombs and wasted energy of war. But that cannot happen until you change your mind about Jesus. That cannot happen until you understand that his teachings were only of love. They were not of these other things that the church added on to his basic teachings. And so many of you will find that book challenging. If you have not read it already, we would suggest you do, because to change your planet's trajectory, you must change your opinion of what and who he was. And the next book about love is such a basic requirement for your society. You do not even have any idea what love is. Your idea of love has been taught through propaganda. It has been taught through your mass media systems, the movies, the songs, the books, the relentless pursuit of that one special person that will save you from yourself. And that is not what love is. That book goes deeply into the true nature of love and how to recognize it, how to invite it into your life, how to understand the basic laws of creation. And so that book is very, very important if you want to be happy, if you want to go through life appreciating who and what you are, understanding who and what you are. But you cannot understand who and what you are until you understand what has been done to you. And that is the fifth book, Spirit of the Western Way, an instruction book on your body, an instruction book about your society, the teachings that you receive here, built on these previous texts so that you have a complete and full understanding, not only of your global and societal history, but of your personal journey. This brings us to the book now that our dear one has just brought to completion. And that book is going to be what we speak about in this episodic journey through your planet's history and through your recent historical times and to the impending transformations of your society. That book is about the chaos that has been wrought on your planet. It is bringing into conversation some of the unspoken ideas that you have been too limited to hear up until this point. So do not worry. It is a truth that you are ready to hear now if you have been reading and taking in our information in these incremental steps from complete conditioning into an adjusted frequency and adjusted mind. That is what we are doing here. There are those of you that will say you do not want your mind adjusted, but we will tell you that your mind has been adjusted for decades, for centuries, for millennia. You are swimming in a sea of adjustment and you do not know it because your parents were in that adjustment program, your grandparents were in that adjustment program, and of course on and on and on into your past. So we want you to stay tuned here. This next book is going to reveal to you many, many secrets about your society, many, many impending transformations about your society. And we want you to know that given these 5 previous texts, you have been amply prepared. So your planet, according to your history, has been on the go for about 10,000 years in the form in which you see yourself. So you have been fed a story about a 10,000 year history of the development of agriculture and the evolution of a sedentary society, domesticating animals, heading into the ability to build magnificent pyramids of which you are incapable at this time even. A very, very sudden growth spurt, we would say there, that is completely illogical based on your traditional historical stories. And the last 200 and the last 2,000 years, of course, you know that history, or you believe you know that history. But we want to tell you a different story. There is a story about your planet that is much longer than that. And we want you to know that there are ancient civilizations that do not live on this planet, that have been visiting you for a very, very long time. Now, these ancient civilizations come from other solar systems in other galaxies, and they are indeed ancient. We are speaking of billions of years here.